I can't believe you're that uneducated. What a disappointment. We're not a match, so please don't come to the wedding.
I, a night school graduate, was told this by my sister's fiancé. Considering my sister's feelings, I decided not to attend. Yes, my sister has a prestigious background, working in the government, but on the wedding day,
If we go by your logic, shouldn't you be the one who shouldn't attend?
my sister's words left her fiancé flustered. He still doesn't know about my real job or educational background. I, Michael Smith, have been an orphan since I can remember, raised in an orphanage. From a young age, I loved browsing through the illustrated encyclopedias available at the orphanage. Even if I couldn't read the words, I enjoyed looking at the pictures and exploring unknown worlds. Around the age of 4, once I became able to read letters, I also started delving into novels. Children's novels usually don't use any difficult expressions, so if you can understand the basic words, you can read and understand them easily. For words and meanings I didn't understand or unique phrasings in novels, I'd ask the staff at the facility. So, by the time I was 5, I could understand not only the basic expressions, but also difficult expressions too. I then began to take interest in numbers, making it a daily routine to solve homework problems of grade schoolers in the orphanage alongside them. Around the time I turned 6, Robert Smith, who'll be my father, found me. I was keen on studying, but I was terrible at sports. Maybe that's why I was shorter than most kids my age. When Robert visited the orphanage, he saw me studying among grade schoolers and asked the staff, "Is that child also in grade school?" That's how it all began. Upon learning my age and abilities, he said, "Such a gifted child. He can't get the education he deserves here. It would be a waste." And he decided to adopt me. Robert and his wife, Karen, were over 35 and had been struggling with infertility. At that time, fertility treatments were very expensive, and there wasn't much understanding from others. They both decided to give up on having their own child and chose to adopt from the orphanage. That's how they adopted me, raising me strictly yet kindly. They didn't pamper me for being adopted. They sometimes scolded and sometimes praised me, raising me as their true son. One day, when I was 7, my parents called me.
"We're having a baby."
Those words left my mind blank. I knew they adopted me because they couldn't have kids. So, when their own child was born, would they no longer need me? I was filled with anxiety, but it was unfounded.
"Don't worry, Michael. You're our son. You might not be born of us, but you're just as precious. That will never change, even when the baby comes."
They reassured me with those words, and they meant every word. The child born was a girl. She was adorable, resembling both parents, with big, bright eyes and a cheerful face.
"Look at how she smiles. Doesn't she look just like Michael?"
Yes, she does.
Nothing made me happier than my parents' words, and I doted on my younger sister, Lily, a lot. The 4 of us lived happily together. About 8 years after Lily was born, something unexpected happened. Suddenly, my mom fell and was rushed to the hospital by ambulance. My dad told me to stay home with Lily, and I saw him off as he headed to the hospital.
Is Mom going to be okay?
Hugging a trembling, anxious Lily, all I could do was keep telling her, "She'll be fine." I felt pathetic for not being able to say more. Then, my dad returned with the news. My mom was diagnosed with a rare disease. He seemed as though he hadn't fully processed it yet, and he couldn't provide detailed information about her condition. My mom had to be hospitalized for treatment, but since it was a rare disease, there wasn't an established cure. While there were experimental treatments and new drugs to try, all were extremely expensive. My family wasn't poor, but we weren't millionaires either. Of course, we didn't have the huge amount of money readily available. "Dad, I need to talk to you." I approached my dad for a serious conversation a few days later. "I want to transfer to a night school, work during the day, and earn money for mom's treatment."
Michael, I appreciate your sentiment, but you're only 16. Leave your mom's situation to me and focus on what you want to do.
I hadn't expected him to easily agree, so his response was anticipated. "Dad, I'm forever grateful that you took me in when I was an orphan and raised me with so much love and care. Without you two, I wouldn't be who I am today. I want to give it back. I want to do something for my family."
Michael,
"I can study at any time, but right now is the only time I can act for Mom. I think now's the time. If I don't do it, I'll regret it. Please, I want to work for my family." Keep looking into his eyes and saying it enthusiastically. My dad let out a heavy sigh. Then he said, "Okay, all right." He nodded, seemingly resigned.
all right, I get it. But don't overwork yourself, okay?
"Yes, I promise. Thanks, Dad." Overcome by my determination, my dad gave in. A few days later, through his connections, he introduced me to David, his close friend and a company president I'd met a few times before. I told David I wanted to work for my family, and he hired me as an office worker. By day, I worked as an office worker, and by night, I attended the night school I'd transferred to. As my dad had warned, I struggled to adjust at first. Some days, I'd come home so tired I'd fall asleep without even eating. But the school had a diverse set of students of varying ages, and just talking with them was both educational and enjoyable. Seeing me exhausted every day, Lily started cooking on her own, preparing delicious meals for me. Whenever I could spare time, I'd visit my mom or play with Lily. 2 years flew by like this, and I successfully graduated. Holding my diploma, I visited David to thank him. He praised me. "You've done well, balancing work and school. I didn't think you'd pull it off without ever complaining. Michael, you've got grit." From the next day, he entrusted me with more responsibilities at work. Lily grew up and started high school. She studied very hard on her own, also worked a part-time job. "Lily, if you keep juggling work and studies like this, you'll burn out. Why don't you take a break and hang out with friends?"
It's fine. You did the same thing every day, didn't you?
"Well, yeah, but..." I couldn't argue too much since I saw my own past in her.
Also, because you and Dad worked so hard, I'm able to focus on studying. For both of you and for Mom, I can't do this half-heartedly. If I decide to do something, I'll give it my all.
"All right, I get it. But don't overwork yourself, okay?"
Yes, Thanks, Michael.
It felt strange telling Lily the same thing my dad had told me years ago. Afterwards, Lily managed to balance her part-time job with her studies and eventually got into a state university. However, around that time, my mom's condition rapidly worsened. Despite trying various medications and treatments, there wasn't any noticeable improvement. All we could do was watch her suffer. And then, around the time Lily turned 20, clutching a family photo from Lily's birthday party, my mother passed away peacefully, as if she were just going to sleep. Even after her memorial service, our house remained eerily quiet for a while. To contribute to my mom's medical bills, all those years I'd spent frantically trying to help the family, couldn't I have done more for her? Wasn't there a less painful way for her? Seeing Lily cry in front of a portrait of my mother was heart-wrenching. Dad,
What's up?
I figured out what I want to do. There are many others suffering from the same rare disease my mom had. I want to save them, help them. I want to be someone who can save them. But by then, I was already nearing my 30s. Is it too late to start now?
It's never too late, Michael. You've always been bright. It won't be easy, but I believe you can do it.
I was grateful for my dad's encouragement. A few years later, before I knew it, I was over 40. I'd learned that research on my mom's rare disease was advancing at a pharmaceutical company in New York, so I moved there without hesitation. By the way, Lily got a job as a diplomat. Surrounded by male colleagues, she was building her career, working diligently. Our schedules hardly matched, so we rarely communicated. However, one day, Lily suddenly reached out.
I'm getting married. I want to introduce my fiancé to you. Can you come back for a while?
I was overjoyed to hear about Lily, who hadn't dated anyone even after turning 30. Naturally, I was ecstatic. After reading her message, I immediately discussed it with my workplace. I managed to get a temporary leave and return to my hometown. On the day I was to meet Lily and her fiancé, I headed to the private dining restaurant she had reserved, and the two of them were already there.
Michael.
Lily, long time no see.
Yeah. Oh, let me introduce you. This is Tom, my fiancé.
I'm Tom Wilson. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm Michael, Lily's brother. Tom seemed like a genuine good guy. It seems they met at work and started dating. Our conversation flowed smoothly, and the mood was cheerful throughout the meal. When the meal was over and Lily excused herself to the restroom, something unexpected happened. Tom, who seemed like a nice guy until then, suddenly narrowed his eyes.
So, Lily looks up to you, and I was wondering what kind of remarkable person you might be. But you're just a graduate from night school, huh?
What?
I must say, I'm disappointed. You're not even remotely on our level. It might be best if you don't attend our wedding.
Tom gestured dismissively at me. What do you mean? Despite his cheerful demeanor just moments ago with Lily, he continued to mock me with that same smile.
I mean exactly what I said. My family has a long line of bureaucrats. Only the elite of the elite. And now you expect me to introduce someone of such a low educational background into our prestigious lineage. I don't think I can handle that.
I was silent, unable to comprehend his jovial cruelty when, coincidentally, Lily returned and suggested we leave. I thought about going back to New York without another word, but my concern for Lily's future compelled me to see her again before I left. It's hard for me to say this, but I started explaining what Tom had told me. Lily looked shocked and then angry.
I'm so sorry he said those things to you, Michael.
It's not your fault, and I'm not bothered. I'm more worried about you. That's why I called you. I trust her judgment, but I worry about her. Spending her life with someone who could say such things to his fiancé's brother.
Don't worry about me. I'm not a child, and I'm not the quiet type. You know that, right? So promise me you'll come to the wedding. I want you to see me as a bride.
Lily. I wanted to see my only sister's big day, but I was torn, fearing my presence might cause Lily trouble with her in-laws. On the day of the wedding, I visited the bride's waiting room in the church. Lily, you look beautiful.
Thank you, Michael.
Seeing Lily in her wedding dress brought tears to my eyes. Dad was already in tears.
I wish Karen could have seen this.
Referring to Mom, the three of us shared a tearful laugh. Soon after, Dad left the room, and as he did, Tom entered.
Lily?
Tom.
Seeing me, Tom made a face of clear disdain.
Didn't expect you here.
I'd thought about not attending for Lily's sake, but I desperately wanted to see her in her wedding dress. Since I took a long leave, I plan to enjoy my stay here. It's my sister's big day. I'll leave soon, so please bear with me for now. Smiling, I watched as Tom let out a deep sigh. But when Lily saw this, she glared at him.
No matter what you say, I want my brother to attend.
Lily, it's okay.
It's not okay. Tom, if you say one more bad thing about my brother, I might reconsider this marriage.
Why?
Why would I marry someone who badmouths my family?
Lily stood firm, and Tom, not expecting such response, was visibly shaken before becoming defensive.
Well, it's true, isn't it? He just graduated from night school. Aren't you embarrassed?
There's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Then, the sound of Lily's slap echoed. Tom, taken aback, opened his eyes wide, holding his cheek in shock and slowly turning his gaze to Lily. Though visibly trembling with anger, Lily tried to compose herself, taking deep breaths. I couldn't help but put my hand on her shoulder for comfort.
Maybe it's you who shouldn't attend.
What?
Maybe you're the one who shouldn't be at the wedding, Tom.
What do you mean by that?
Michael is working in New York as a doctor.
What?
By your own logic, Michael has a university degree, and it's from the Ivy League, no less.
Tom's eyes widened further, comparing Lily and me. After my mom passed away, I aspired to become a doctor. I consulted many people and set a 3-year deadline to get into medical school. David, my boss, had made an agreement that if I couldn't get in within 3 years, I'd give up. But he also made arrangements at work so I could focus on my studies. Though I got into a medical school in my town, I heard about advances in research on the disease in New York and immediately discussed it with my dad. Go ahead, he said, handing me a significant amount of money. David also generously gave me severance pay, and both of them wholeheartedly supported my decision. I had the full support of everyone when I decided to go to New York instead of attending a university in my town. I had to engrave those emotions into my heart and committed to fulfilling their expectations. It takes at least 8 years to get a medical license in the US. Currently, I've managed to obtain a license and am working as a doctor while simultaneously joining a research team for the disease.
No way. That's impossible. You're lying.
After hearing my story, Tom shouted repeatedly, insisting it was a lie.
I won't accept it. I can't. Why didn't you mention this when we first met? You could have defended yourself.
I didn't go to a university in New York just for the prestige. I had something I truly wanted to achieve, and for that, I needed to become a doctor. That's all.
What's that supposed to mean?
My educational background just comes with it. So, I wasn't interested in discussing it. Tom slumped into a chair, at a loss for words.
Why can you only measure a person by their academic background?
Tom, in a daze, began to speak slowly. All his siblings and parents had graduated from top universities, and he was the only one who couldn't go to that top university. From a young age, Tom was the only one who couldn't excel academically and grew up being labeled as an underachiever. Although he went to a prestigious college, he was in the department with the lowest entry scores. Because of that, the underachiever label stuck with him, and over time, his educational background became a complex for him. However, whenever he went to social mixers, just mentioning the name of his college made him popular. His family always called him an underachiever, but maybe, to the general public, he was still considered elite. Thinking like that, he realized people didn't care about actual abilities, but only about educational background. Thus, he started to believe that having a good educational background was everything. In the midst of Tom's story, my dad, who had returned to the room, spoke up.
Do you really think academic background is everything after seeing Michael? Michael indeed attended a night school, but he chose that path to work and support his family while studying. Is that something to be ashamed of? No matter how you try to belittle my son, I'm proud of him.
That's just an idealistic way of seeing things.
Lily frowned at Tom's sulky words.
So what? Michael and I have worked hard to get where we are, doing our best for our family. Can you only maintain your pride by putting others down, Tom?
Seeing Tom at a loss for words, I said, well, I kinda get the feeling of being anxious when someone close is accomplished. Though our situations were different, when my sister, Lily, was born, I felt unnecessary since I was adopted and feared being left out. However, my family always reassured and cherished me wholeheartedly. That's why, when I learned that our family needed money due to Mom's illness, I worried about becoming a burden. I didn't want to feel left out, and I didn't want to be alone, so I did what I could. It might sound silly, even though I was a high school student, capable of living on my own, I just didn't want to be alone. I was scared of losing my family again. But I was blessed with a loving family, and that's why I'm here now.
Michael, you felt that way, huh?
Seeing Lily's teary eyes, I handed her a towel. While she was wiping her tears, Tom murmured,
I just wanted someone to acknowledge me.
Tom.
My family never recognized my efforts or abilities. No matter how hard I tried, I was always seen as the underachiever. They never truly saw my worth. But Lily, only you, truly saw and appreciated me for who I am.
Tom's hands trembled as he looked downward, and Lily gently placed her hand over his.
I knew Lily didn't care about academic qualifications. She went to a public university but treated me as an equal without flaunting it. It made me happy. And when I introduced her to my family, they praised her. So I was worried that if they found out about your high school background, they'd say something. But that's no excuse for my behavior.
Murmuring, Tom stood up to face me.
Michael, I was wrong. Whether you went to med school or not, that's not the point. We shouldn't judge people by their academic background. It's who they are inside that truly matters. I'm truly sorry for my words.
No worries. Understanding is all that matters. And it was also my fault for not telling earlier.
Lily, now I understand why you respect your brother so much.
See, he's my pride and joy.
I'm really sorry, Lily.
Watching Tam's heartfelt apology and Lily's bright smile, my dad and I left the room. 6 months later, Lily and Tom had their wedding and seemed to be getting along fine. Before moving back to New York, I had dinner with my dad and the newlyweds a few times. Each time, I couldn't help but laugh seeing Tom completely under Lily's thumb. Apparently, that slap had a lasting effect, skewing their relationship balance a bit, which worried me. But seeing Lily's joyful smile, I think they'll be all right. I'm no longer worried about Lily. As for me, David kept dragging me out for drinks, saying, "Since you're in this town, at least join in a bit. Talk about work," reminiscing about life in New York. The conversation never ended, and as we got more engrossed with our drinks, he said, "You seem to always be worried about Lily, but what about you?" Well, I mean,
You're a doctor, yet I don't see any women around you.
I've been just working.
You've always been too straight-laced, only looking forward and missing everything else.
The next day after that chat, he unexpectedly introduced me to his daughter.
Nice to meet you.
Hi there, David, what's this about?
Just thought, since you're single, why not meet my daughter? Have a chat, who knows, it might just work out.
If you say so. It seemed that he talked about me a lot when I was in New York, and she got curious about me. Her name was Sarah Henderson. She's a flight attendant. She works mostly on international flights and frequently uses an airport in New York. We hit it off instantly. We got so engrossed in our conversation that David left without us noticing, which gave us another reason to laugh. She happened to be in this town at that time, and we went out to various places together. As my vacation ended and it was time to return, Sarah, sensing my sadness, rushed to me and said,
It's okay, we'll meet again soon.
Before I could respond, it was time to board my flight and I left. After returning to New York and settling back into my routine, reminiscing about my time here, one day, my home intercom rang. I opened the door, and there she was, Sarah, standing in front of me.
See, I told you we'd meet again soon.
My name is Jessica Brown. I am on my way to the wedding of my high school classmate, Michelle. I had been looking forward to seeing my dearest friend on her special day for a long time. Upon arriving at the nearest station to the venue, a station attendant was waiting at the exit, and when the doors opened, he kindly said, "Please watch your step," and placed a ramp to bridge the gap between the train and the platform. I had been living in a wheelchair my whole life due to a congenital disability. I wheeled myself manually and proceeded to the ticket gates with the guidance of the station attendant. Then, it happened. A young man in a suit, seemingly in a rush, perhaps due to an important meeting, ran with great speed, eyes on his wristwatch. He almost bumped into me, who was nearby, unnoticed, and shouted, "Whoa!" I asked, "Are you okay?" But he retorted, "Get out the way," and hurried down the stairs to the platform. Despite being Michelle's wedding day, my mood turned sour. I'm the one who knows best that I'm a hindrance to society. I have lived a life constantly exposed to curious gazes, experiencing more inconveniences than an average person. However, the silver lining in my life was being loved by my parents. My dad bought a large van to accommodate my wheelchair and took me to various places. And my mom was my greatest confidant, always encouraging me to share my feelings and concerns with her. I truly feel fortunate to be their child. Nevertheless, the handicap of being disabled was significant. Since elementary school, I had been attending special needs classes where students with various disabilities gathered. Some couldn't speak, some had hearing impairments, some were blind, each had their challenges. Some students were very unruly. It was somewhat a chaotic class, as I remember. But being in a space with such classmates felt comfortable. To me, the biggest adversaries during my school days were, ironically, the regular class students who could walk freely.
Whoa, a wheelchair.
She can't walk.
Since the special support class and the regular class were in different buildings, we hardly ran into each other in the hallways. But our shoe lockers were right next to each other. So around the time of arriving and leaving school, I always heard whispers from afar while I'm changing my shoes, sitting in my wheelchair.
Why does she need to change shoes if she can't walk?
She can actually walk, right? Must be nice. Riding around every day. Looks fun.
I was fed up with such unfounded prejudices. I wanted to shout that I wanted to walk and run, just like everyone else. So I immersed myself in reading novels to escape reality. Reading novels was the only time I felt at peace. Thus, a novel has always been in my bag, sort of my only hobby. Let's forget about what just happened. I shook my head vigorously, trying to shake off the words of the man who had spoken harshly to me at the station platform. I should be used to being treated as hindrance. Even for me to go to a wedding, I need to inform the station when I arrive, and cooperation from station attendants is necessary. Even the things average people can do casually require a lot of effort from various people when I do them. In other words, I'm always aware that I'm living by causing trouble to various people. It felt like carrying a lifetime of guilt for being alive. Of course, there are kind people, but there are also those who look at me with annoyed eyes, and like that man earlier, people who say, "You're in the way." Don't mind those people, some say, but I can't help but think that's the opinion of people who can do everything by themselves. Nonetheless, to preserve my sanity, I decided not to mind them. It's finally Michelle's wedding day. I want to bless her with a smile. Thinking this, I force a smile and enter the venue. The venue is filled with photographs of Michelle and her husband. All their smiles are so warm and lovely, it's heartwarming. I wonder how a bride feels. Michelle is about to become a mother. With such thoughts, I become more and more emotional. I met Michelle back in high school. I had been in special support classes until middle school, but entered general classes in high school. There were curious gazes there too. But Michelle, who happened to sit next to me, spoke to me openly. Even a shy girl like me was able to open up to her quickly.
Hey, Jessica, let's watch a romance movie at the theater next time.
I was happy when Michelle invited me like that. However, I looked down at the wheelchair I was on. If I go out to have fun, would it be a bother to others? Such anxiety attacked me. But Michelle said, "It's okay." I checked around town and I found a theater that's fully accessible. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility. Trust me. And she patted her chest reassuringly. She didn't find me a bother. Instead, she said she would support me. This was the first time someone said something like that to me. And I was so happy I almost cried. Having been exposed to curious gazes for a long time, I somehow knew how I was perceived by others, but from her, I felt she genuinely wanted to just talk. That's why we became good friends quickly. Thanks to her becoming my friend, I was able to enjoy my high school life. Remembering such moments with Michelle, I proceeded to the back of the venue. Then, it was time for the ceremony, and I headed there, wheeling my wheelchair. But the attendees there sent me distant gazes. As always, I pretended not to mind and lined up at the back of the seats. Then, the groom's side of attendees became noisy.
Man, you're a writer for real. That's awesome, Nicholas.
Come on, call me by my pen name, Adrian Ward. I'm the future genius novelist. Lucky for you guys to have a celebrity as a friend.
Some nouveau-rich-looking guy with long bangs flapping was laughing snobbily. It seems that he is a novelist, and I recognized the name Adrian Ward. If I recall correctly, he won the special jury prize at a newcomer award last year. So, he's Adrian Ward, I thought, staring at him. Winning an award is indeed great, but I think he hasn't made his novelist debut yet. And yet, acting like a big shot, I'm going to surpass the soaring genius author, Milo White, he said loudly. Probably he's bragging about winning a prize, making sure everyone hears. By the way, Milo White is an author gradually becoming famous since some of her books have been adapted into movies. It's fine to have ambitions, but I wish he considered the surroundings as well. I sighed quietly so he wouldn't hear. Finally, the ceremony began, and the groom made his entrance. And then, the main event, the bride appeared. Michelle's wedding dress was really beautiful, and I was mesmerized. Her mother was next to her, shedding tears at her daughter's shining moment. Seeing that made me cry too. Michelle, covered in a white veil, found me and mouthed, "Thank you." I also mouthed back, "Congratulations." I felt I received happiness from Michelle, and my heart was full. However, I unexpectedly experienced a tragedy. It was on the way to the reception venue. I was wheeling so as not to bother anyone, but as I tried to enter the venue, I found a small step and stopped my wheelchair. What to do? I wish someone could push me, but there were no staff around, and I was at a loss. Then laughter from a man echoed from behind. I have to hurry inside. Thinking so, I forcefully propelled my wheelchair, aiming to overcome the step with momentum. However, by the time I exclaimed, "Oh," it was already too late. The wheel caught hopelessly on the step, and I, along with my wheelchair, was thrown sideways. From behind, I could hear the men letting out frustrated sighs saying, "Oh well," and I could feel my face going pale. I had fallen right at the entrance, completely blocking the way. I'm so sorry. I'll move immediately." I apologized, trying to hastily lift myself. But lifting my upper body with just the strength of my arms was all I could manage. And the fallen wheelchair was unmanageable in such a situation. The people behind just watched me struggle, looking plainly annoyed.
What's her deal? Why is she here?
She really doesn't belong here.
can't deal with disabled people.
Whispers like these pierced through my heart, like needles. I'm sorry. So sorry. I kept apologizing and was trying to do something when, hey there, a loud voice made me flinch. It was Nicholas, the friend from the groom's side, also known by his pen name, Adrian Ward, who bragged about being a novelist.
You can't do it alone, can you? Your legs don't work, right? Quickly call the staff loudly. It's causing a backlog.
Holding back tears, I could only respond, yes. Then, noticing the commotion, staff rushed to me, and with their help, I finally managed to get back into my wheelchair.
Really disrupting the flow of the group. Truly inconvenient and a nuisance.
Nicholas clicked his tongue and threw such words at me. Led by him, the men who bad-mouthed me also entered one by one.
The venue is this way.
A staff member stopped me as I tried to go in the opposite direction from the entrance. I'm sorry. My dress is a mess, so I'm leaving, I said with a forced smile. I had caused discomfort to the friends of the groom, important people to Michelle, due to my fall. It was an act that smeared my friend's reputation. I was hurt, but simultaneously, guilt crept in. The shock, nonetheless, overwhelmed me, and I sneaked into the restroom and cried silently. How much time had passed? The reception must have started, and the bride and groom must have made their entrance by now. Feeling somewhat more calm, I left the restroom. I had seen Michelle in her wedding dress. I should leave to avoid being a nuisance any longer. I've lived to avoid causing inconveniences to society like this. Then, pushing my unusually heavy wheelchair, I reached near the exit. That's when
Jessica.
My name was called out loudly, so I turned around, wondering who could it be. And I was surprised. Michelle running towards me, holding the hem of her wedding dress. Hey, Michelle, you could fall running like that. I fretted seeing her almost trip, but Michelle, catching her breath, grabbed my hand. Michelle, it's your wedding reception now, isn't it? If the main person leaves. I said, but she replied, I don't care about that. Then the groom came running with a puzzled expression. Looking closely, Nicholas and the others who had bad-mouthed me also came running, saying, What? Not good. It's becoming a big deal. I was distracted by them, but my gaze immediately returned to Michelle, who had started crying at some point.
Why are you leaving, Jessica?
Seeing my best friend's tears, I realized the gravity of what I had done. From her perspective, she must have been filled with anxiety, since I left halfway. Well, I turned my gaze towards Nicholas and his companions. Then, these guests were saying they don't want any disabled people here. One of the staff blurted out, causing both me and Nicholas's group to be shocked.
What? Hey, you? How dare a staff member have such an attitude?
Nicholas said with wide eyes, but the staff member avoided eye contact. Even though they were the guests of the other party, she stood up for me. And then, hearing this, Michelle showed a face like a demon in the next moment.
Don't want any disabled people. Enough with the ridiculous remarks.
At Michelle's shout, Nicholas and his companions stiffened.
Do you realize how much this girl has been apologizing, living subserviently to others, always being considerate of others, blaming herself because she can't do anything alone? Since birth, she has lived like that. How can you say words like nuisance to such a person?
Michelle broke down, crying on the spot. My heart was filled with regret for ruining the bride's face, which should be the happiest in her lifetime at the wedding. Michelle was crying and getting angry for me. But I, thinking of myself as a nuisance friend to Michelle, tried to distance myself from her. Michelle, seeing that I always live feeling guilty to others, kept telling me, I want you to live more confidently. Do what you want to do. Such a kind girl would never think of me as a nuisance. Thank you, Michelle, for always being on my side. I wiped her tears with my handkerchief. Then, Michelle's husband stepped in front of Nicholas and his group.
I never thought you guys would be so shameless. Apologize to Jessica right now. If you can't apologize, I'll return all your gifts and ask you to leave. I will cover the travel expenses.
Indeed, he is the person acknowledged by Michelle. He scolded them assertively, although they are important friends, enough to be invited to the wedding. I was happy with that feeling. Then, I am sorry for saying rude things like nuisance. One after another started apologizing to me. But here, Nicholas snapped. I was invited and came all this way.
People in wheelchairs are just beggars who do nothing to contribute to society but receive tax money.
Everyone was dumbfounded at those words that seemed to lost the human rationale, but Nicholas was getting more and more aggressive.
I'm such a genius that I can win awards if I write novels. Everyone talks to me with a disrespectful attitude.
But here, Michelle said, "Genius, don't make me laugh. Third-rate writer," and started laughing scornfully, making Nicholas's face turn even redder.
What?
So, when is your novel getting published?
Well, about that.
If you want to brag about winning an award, then become an author like Mila White, who won the grand prize 4 years ago, before you talk big. Well, you'll never become an author like Mila White anyway. I've met her before, and the caliber of a person she is different from you. People living mediocre lives. Like you can't write a good novel.
You just keep talking. And for the record, you've been acting like you know Mila White. Cut it out with the lies. There's no way you could have met such an amazing author.
I have met her. She's right in front of us.
At Michelle's words, Nicholas made a dumbfounded face. And then, he directed that face towards me. It was because I was the one Michelle was pointing at when she said, "She's right in front of us."
You are the Mila White.
Well, yes. I'm a full-time writer. And my pen name is Mila White.
You were a judge in last year's novel competition, right?
Yes, that's why I knew your name, Mr. Adrian Ward. But I didn't vote for you because I found it rather uninteresting. I'm sorry. Upon hearing this, Nicholas seemed so shocked that he was almost foaming at the mouth.
Now do you get it? This girl is contributing enough to society? Well, according to your logic. But I'll continue to be friends with Jessica, even if she's not a great author. It's fine if she isn't great. I love her just the way she is. I can tell it's a failure even before reading a book written by a shallow person like you, who decides people's value based on how much tax they pay or how much influence they have on society.
After spatting out to him one last time, Michelle glared at Nicholas with razor-sharp eyes, and he seemed so embarrassed that he ran away. For now, this commotion seems to have subsided, and I'm relieved. Then I quickly said, "Michelle, you can't keep everyone waiting forever." And Michelle puffed her cheeks a little and hugged my face with both hands.
Why did you leave in the middle? If something's bothering you, you should have talked to me right away. We're best friends.
I apologized to Michelle, saying, I'm so sorry." Then, in a flustered manner, Michelle's husband responded, "No, all the fault is mine. I'm truly sorry, my friend." And so I hastily said to him, "No, it's all in the past now." At that moment, the surrounding people started to murmur.
What, Mila White? Isn't she the famous person from that romance novel?
It's becoming a movie soon. Awesome.
I wonder if I can get an autograph.
I, being a masked author who doesn't reveal my face, hadn't expected everyone to be surprised and look at me with eyes full of respect. Learning that Mila White is a person in a wheelchair. Even the men who had belittled me did so. Thinking that being bombarded with questions would be bothersome, I told Michelle, let's go back to the reception. She and her husband seemed delighted. Thus, I was able to see my best friend's joy-filled smile until the very end, through her cake cutting, and her tear-filled messages of gratitude to her family. Since then, I've been getting along well with Michelle and her husband. Her husband was actually a fan of my novels and said it was a real honor to meet me.
But if you are such a great author, you should have retorted to that bragging Nicholas.
When he said that, Michelle responded, "Jessica has always been a shy person, but that's okay. I love her just the way she is, remaining humble no matter how great a writer she becomes." Saying that, Michelle came in for a hug, to which I gave a wry smile and responded, "I'm not great or anything." By the way, the Mila in Mila White was named by Michelle. I had shared my dream of becoming a novelist with Michelle, my one and only best friend. I couldn't consult my parents, thinking they would oppose due to the tough world of writing, but she supported me. Thanks to her, I was able to talk to my parents and am now able to write books. Michelle has a significant presence in my life.
When you find a wonderful husband, you better invite me to your wedding.
My best friend's words made me nod in agreement. Actually, my editor recently confessed he likes me. I'm still pondering over his proposal, but somehow the scene of walking down the aisle with him comes to my mind. If I could marry him, I'd want to contact my best friend right away.
What are you doing here?
I was caught off guard by a voice from behind, so I spun around. There was my ex-wife, clad in a formal black dress. It had been 17 years, but my ex-wife's gaze was as icy as ever.
You really have some nerve showing up in a suit and announced.
She had a point. I'm sorry. I just thought if I could see our daughter looking happy, even for a moment. I was pouring out my true feelings. But then she laid it on me. It's out of the question. You promised you'd never see her again. That includes just looking. Please, just go. She was right. I had made that promise, and if she insisted, I had to oblige. Got it. My bad for not thinking it through. I was the one at fault. So, it can't be helped. As I turned my back on the venue, that's when. My name is Mark Johnson, 47 years old. I work for a food service company, where my main gig is delivering ordered goods to restaurants. Long ago, I came to grips with not having any standout talents. I'm not cut out for jobs that require sharp thinking or imagination to create things. Some folks look down on my delivery job, and sure, the pay isn't great. But what I dig is the interaction with clients and suggesting products that fit their needs, knowing indirectly that customers are getting joy out of it. I like my current job very much because I can feel such great joy even if it appears to be simple like that. Though, if I told my ex this, she'd probably call it sour grapes. I've been single and living alone for 17 years now. I'm not looking to remarry. I decided to ride solo a long while back. But even a guy like me had a family that mattered once. My ex, Alice, and I were college classmates. We were just part of the same crew, nothing special between us two, and dating wasn't on my radar. But after graduating, we ran into each other again and started going out for drinks together. Back then, I was a college grad working at a major ad agency. To be honest, I couldn't figure out why I got accepted. It was such a renowned company with a solid track record. I was maxed out just trying to memorize what I was taught and keep up with my peers, finding it tough to finish my own work within the hours, and ending up working overtime till the last train to barely make ends meet. Feeling inferior to my more capable colleagues was a daily struggle, Despite others envying the glamorous job, my days were anything but. Deep down, reconnecting with Alice was a genuine relief. She knows the me that couldn't hack it back in school. She was the sole comfort for my weary soul. Meanwhile, Alice got her foot in the door with the fashion company she's been dreaming of since starting college. She's a go-getter, a real career woman, and she totally got how hectic my job was. Maybe that's why we had such a blast being together back then. 3 months post-reunion, we were dating, and before we knew it, we were hitched. Tied the knot at 24, and we had a child a year later. Our daughter, Hannah. Alice loved her job, but pregnancy took its toll, and she chose to quit for Hannah's sake. Knowing how much she treasured her career, I swore to work my butt off for both of us. Armed with fresh resolve, I threw myself into my work more than ever. At least, that was the plan. Around the time when Hannah was about to turn 5, there was a massive layoff at the company, and I ended up being one of those let go. While it was hard to say that I did not work that much overtime, I prided myself on meticulous, error-free work. I may have been slow, but I kept my work quality up as much as possible. And I made damn sure not to neglect my family, cherishing every moment at home with Alice and Hannah, doing everything I could for them. But then, the layoff. I thought that hard work doesn't pay off. I didn't want to tell Alice that I had lost my job, since she had sacrificed her beloved job to devote everything to raising our child. But, living with family, it would naturally be strange if I didn't go to work. In such an extreme situation, the solution I came up with was to pretend to go to work as usual and hide the fact that I had been laid off. Looking back calmly now, I wonder why I did something so foolish. Hiding such a significant matter from my life partner, my wife, is something one should never do, and even if I tried to hide it, it would certainly come out eventually. But at the time, I was too desperate to realize such a simple thing. The day after I was told about the layoff, I went for a convenience store part-time job interview, a little ways away from home. I chose a convenience store because I had experience from my student days and thought I could pick up the work quickly. And fortunately, that experience paid off, and I was hired on the spot. From the next day, I dressed in a suit as usual to leave the house, then changed into my uniform. I worked my shift as a part-timer, and then changed back into my suit and returned home as if nothing had happened. This went on for about half a year. Alice, who knew nothing, continued to smile as always and really did her best with housework and parenting. Since she was someone who gave her all at work, I think she did her best at home too. But in hindsight, I'm sure she had stress piling up inside that she didn't show me. I was neither able to notice nor try to be aware of it. You could only think about not being abandoned by her, was truly a fool. About half a year into this fake part-time life. Of course, I was also looking for a full-time job and going to interviews, but times were tough, and it was hard to get hired. I couldn't keep lying forever, and there wouldn't be enough money for Hannah, our daughter, to continue her education. I needed to find stable work quickly, but the desperation of not finding anything was cornering me. Around that time,
Do you have something you're hiding from me?
After Hannah went to bed, Alice said that to me. I was inwardly startled because I had a big secret, but I figured there was no way she could know. I was so sure of myself. I had chosen a place over an hour away from my part-time work to ensure that neither Alice or anyone else would spot me. And I had never once remembered acquaintances visiting the store. Maybe she was setting a trap, suspecting infidelity or something. Since she is jealous since our student days, it was entirely possible. So I said, "What are you talking about? That's impossible. You know, Alice, we've got our precious daughter now. There's nothing for me to hide." I thought she'd be reassured and back down, but she was different that day.
That's right. If a family member lies, they lose trust from their wife and daughter, right? It's absolutely impossible.
Her words felt oddly unnatural, but it was too late to correct them. "Yay, it's impossible. Believe me," I replied, my mind elsewhere. The next moment, whack, Alice stood up from her chair and slapped me across the face. It happened so fast I couldn't immediately understand what had occurred, but the anger on Alice's face in front of me was unmistakable, and there were tears in her eyes. "What? Why?" Startled by the slap, my voice came out stronger than I intended. Then she dropped a bombshell.
"You big liar. The worst. You think I don't know anything."
Goosebumps ran down my body, and I could feel the blood draining from my face. This was not just teasing. Could it be that she knows I've been laid off and working part-time? Despite my premonition, I was too scared to put it into words. Meanwhile, Alice was shaking with sobs, tears streaming down her face. Then she said, "You're really not going to say anything, are you? I heard it 2 months ago. A childhood friend who came to our wedding saw you working at a convenience store. I couldn't believe it, but I was so worried that I had to see it with my own eyes."
And sure enough, just as my childhood friend said, you were there working at the convenience store, even though you were supposed to leave for work in your usual suit. I thought there must be some reason, and I believed that you would tell me about it someday. But you never did tell me until now. How long are you planning to deceive me like this?
Anger and sadness were mixed in her plea. I could feel her disappointment in me. I desperately tried to explain how I was targeted for massive layoffs, started looking for work right away but couldn't find anything. How I was too embarrassed to tell her, who was a career woman, that I had been fired. How I was so afraid of losing my family, that was why I couldn't tell the truth. But it seemed it was already too late.
It's too late now. I'm sorry, but I can't trust you anymore. I quit the job I loved and devoted everything to my family, yet I couldn't turn your trust. No matter how much you apologize now, it doesn't change the fact that you've been deceiving me for months. Even if I forgave you now, I don't think I could ever trust you again. I don't want to be with someone who only thinks about themselves and can't consider their family's feelings. A liar and jobless person like you would only negatively influence Hannah. I'd be better off raising her by myself. So please, let's get a divorce."
With those words, she presented me with the divorce papers. Of course, I apologized over and over again, begging her to reconsider. But once her feelings had drifted away, they never returned. Indeed, as she said, my actions, taken out of self-preservation, had created an irreparable situation. In the end, I had no choice but to accept the divorce. It was my fault that things had come to this, so I had no right to demand custody of Hannah. Feeling guilty for deceiving them, I also promised not to appear in front of them in the future. It seems that Alice had no intention of letting Hannah see her again. And so, at the age of 30, I lost my precious family because of my foolishness. All because of my own foolishness. Not long after that, I got a job offer from a company I had interviewed with before my divorce, and that's how I ended up switching to the food and beverage manufacturer I'm working for now. After losing everything that was important to me, I didn't need the title of full-time employee or a steady income either. Once I got the job, I worked hard, and that's how I got to where I am today. 17 years have passed. Hannah is now 23. I wonder if she's doing well at the age of a new working adult. What kind of job did she take on? I hope she is working hard at something she loves. Back when I was milling over these things, when I delivered the products to our regular customers' restaurant.
Mr. Johnson, how's going? We've got a new recruit starting today. Mind if they come by to introduce themselves?
When my regular contact said that, I replied, yes, of course. But a little later, when I saw the woman who came out of the kitchen, I was at a loss for words.
Nice to meet you. My name is Hannah Miller. I'll be starting work today as a pastry chef, so I'm looking forward to working with you.
Miller was Alice's maiden name. And even without asking her name, I immediately knew she was my estranged daughter. It's strange, after 17 years. Perhaps that's just how parent-child relationships are. However, considering her feelings, I couldn't just suddenly bring up such a topic. I'm Johnson. I look forward to working with you. With such a non-committal response, I was reunited with the daughter I had longed to see again. Ever since then, whenever I delivered to that restaurant, the new girl Hannah often came to handle things. But without ever revealing the truth, 2 years passed by. She might have a new father, and I couldn't think that coming forward all of a sudden would be for her happiness. Besides, even if I don't tell her about our family connection, I can see her alive and well every week. And even as a stranger, I can look her in the eyes and talk to her. Compared to the 17 years of not knowing where she was or if she was doing all right, this was unimaginable happiness. Then, one day,
Mr. Johnson, Miller is getting married, you know.
That news came out when I was delivering. Yeah, is that so? Surprised, Hannah said a bit shyly. Yes, that's right. I plan to keep working, so please continue to support me, and she showed a bashful smile. Is that right? Congratulations, truly. I said that, fighting back the tears that were welling up. I could vividly remember the day she was born, when she could crawl, the first time she called me Dad, and her lonely expression just before our divorce, no matter how much time had passed. Even though we were estranged, the news of my precious daughter's marriage brought a slight sadness and immense joy.
I've been invited to the wedding, you know, at that new garden restaurant that just opened up. It's really stylish, isn't it?
The contact told me, but it was hard for it to sink in. Memories with Hannah, as far as I could remember, were swirling in my head. The wedding. I want to go. If possible, I want to see her as a bride with my own eyes. I want to say congratulations as her dad. Despite knowing I had no right to say such things, those feelings kept welling up inside me. I noticed she was about to say something, but to forget such helpless feelings I said quickly. Well then, I must be going. I hope it's a wonderful wedding. And I hurriedly left the restaurant. But months later, on the day of Hannah's wedding, I was standing in front of the venue. Of course, I'm not invited. I wasn't, but just to catch a glimpse, even if just for a fleeting moment, I wanted to see Hannah in her bridal gown with my own eyes, so I ended up coming after all. I knew the place and time from a casual chat with a contact, so I snuck in. Luckily, this venue also operates as a regular restaurant in a different section, so it shouldn't be too suspicious for non-guests to pass through. Still, my heart is pounding, wondering if I'll get caught. As the ceremony time drew near, one by one, people who looked like guests started to arrive. Whenever I saw a woman of Hannah's age, I thought to myself, could be one of her friends. I felt grateful to these women. How happy I would be if I could express my gratitude to them face to face, as Hannah's dad. While I was lost in thought, the arrival of guests seemed to cease, and I realized the ceremony had begun. After a while, I heard the sound of the wedding bells and tears naturally started to stream down my face. I pray from the bottom of my heart that Hannah has a happy life from here on out. That's what I was thinking when
What are you doing standing around here?
such a voice called out from behind, so I turned around. There stood my ex-wife, Alice, in a formal dress.
I thought it might be you, but didn't expect you to actually be here, in a suit, at this place.
Her words were valid. I'm sorry. I don't intend to talk to my daughter. Just wanted to see her in her wedding dress, if only for a moment.
That's impossible. You know, you betrayed your daughter and me. Remember, you promised you would never see her again. That includes even a glance. Please leave now.
And with that, I was told off. Indeed, I had made that promise, so I couldn't dispute when she said, "Understood. I was foolish to come. I'm sorry. It was all my fault." Frustrating, but there's nothing I can do. With that thought, I turned to leave the venue. And at that moment, "Mr. Johnson," I heard a voice calling me. Of course, I knew immediately whose voice it was. Turning around, there was Hannah, in a pure white wedding dress. I couldn't hold back my tears.
You came. I'm so happy. Thank you.
An uninvited business associate stands in front of the wedding venue. And for some reason, he's crying. Even though it was a situation where she might understandably be grossed out, Hannah said that with a smile. "No, congratulations, truly." Those were the only simple words I managed to say. There was so much more I wanted to say, but I couldn't.
This is my husband. We've been together since middle school, and he really gets me.
Saying that, she went out of her way to introduce me to the groom. He was also dressed in a spotless white tuxedo. She has grown into such a kind and well-mannered woman. Truly remarkable. I have to be thankful to Alice for that, even though she might be tough on me. Is that so? I'm truly delighted to see how happy you both look. May you have a long and joyful life together. I searched for the right words to convey my heartfelt congratulations without feeling out of place as a business acquaintance.
Thank you so much.
He seems like a really kind and refreshing young man. I'm sure he will make Hannah very happy. I had hoped just to get a glimpse of her, and here I was, not only talking to her but meeting the groom she would share her life with. I'm such a lucky man. At that moment,
Wait a minute. What do you mean?
Alice seemed to have a hard time understanding the casual conversation between me and Hannah. Unaware that I'm her real dad, I wonder if Hannah is confused about why her mom is so angry. Sensing that, I said to Alice, "Excuse me, I'm just someone who has been taken care of by her business at work. I'll leave you now." And with those words that didn't feel out of place for a stranger, I finally turned my back on the venue. But then, wait, Dad, there was no mistaking it. It was Hannah who had called out. I turned towards her, not understanding what was happening. Then, with tears in her eyes, she said, "Dad, I've wanted to invite you to my wedding so many times, but I could never find the words. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad you could see me in my wedding dress." Why? Both Alice and I, who had thought our daughter didn't know the truth, couldn't hide our surprise.
I was 5 years old, you know? There's no way I could forget my beloved dad's face.
She then tearfully shared the past 17 years when we couldn't meet, and the 2 years since we had been reunited. She had always cherished me, her dad, but didn't want to come to meet me out of respect for her mom, who was just as important to her. But she always hoped to see me someday, and she was overjoyed when we met by chance 2 years ago. But like me, she didn't know what the right thing to do was. My existence seemed to make her unhappy. An existence she might be better off forgetting. That had always been my belief. So hearing her true feelings made me so happy, I couldn't stop crying. Then Hannah faced her mom, Alice, and since she was an adult, she was able to get her mom's acknowledgement to meet with her dad freely. Although it meant we wouldn't meet often, mostly during work, being able to meet my daughter as her father was more happiness than I had imagined. Just because she had accepted me didn't erase the wrong of my lies to both of them back then. But what I can do now is not to lie anymore. From now on, I want to watch over Hannah's happiness without any deception.
Do you like strawberry flavor? I asked in my still imperfect French, offering candy to a European girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. Suddenly, the previously sullen girl's eyes lit up and she nodded. I didn't know at the time that meeting this adorable girl would change my life. I'm Kevin Williams, 38 years old. Back when I attended a high school in the US, due to the recent economic downturn, the company my father worked at was struggling. There were no bonuses, and the salaries were cut. Being the eldest of 3 siblings, to help out with the household, I started working at a major apparel shop branch after high school. My grades were decent, so my classmates were surprised when I chose not to pursue higher education. I had only discussed my circumstances with a few close friends and my class teacher. I had vague dreams about the future and thought it was better than just going to college aimlessly. After high school, I got a job successfully, but with busy days and job changes, I couldn't meet my friends. 20 years after graduating from high school, I got a call from my mom about a class reunion. Over the phone, my mom asked,
"What will you do? Shall I mark you as absent again?"
I replied while looking at my schedule, "No, I'll attend this time. I have a bit of availability now."
"Oh, good. Please visit home once in a while."
Realizing that it's been a while since I visited home, I said, "All right, I'll visit. Can you please mark me as attending?" With that, I ended the call. I immediately started adjusting my schedule. It's my first reunion. With this thought, I was excited about meeting everyone again. On the day of the reunion, I arrived at a luxury hotel in my hometown and registered at the reunion venue. When I marked my name on the roster, 2 women at the registration desk shared. Then one woman approached me.
Kevin Williams. Do you remember me? I'm Christine.
Searching my memory, a short-haired woman with a radiant smile came to mind. Wait, are you, Christine, the captain of the volleyball team? So, the one next to you is Susan. Susan nodded happily.
Correct. Long time no see, Steve. I've heard the rumors. You seem busy. Enjoy today.
Thank you. I will. Susan was the manager of the boys' basketball team, and our not-so-spacious high school gym was shared between the boys' basketball team and the girls' volleyball team. Though they were supposed to get along well, there were occasional disputes between the basketball team captain and the volleyball team captain, Christine, over the use of the gym. Every time, it was Susan who would always mediate between them. Initially, they were just 2 classmates, but the strong-willed Christine and the gentle-mannered Susan became a good team. Seeing them like that, it seemed they remained good friends even after graduation. I opened the door and entered the large hall venue. A large crowd of people had gathered inside. Seeing my classmates who somewhat resembled their old selves but had completely grown up, my brain was running full tilt trying to match names to faces. Then, a man walked towards me with an unpleasant smirk. I immediately recognized who the man was from that smirk. It was Mike. Mike spoke to me.
It's been a while, Kevin. Finally showing your face at the reunion. Were you too embarrassed to come before because you only have a high school diploma?
Mike, it's been a while. Mike was the same as ever. Back in high school, he unilaterally viewed me as an enemy, acting out in frustration whenever he ranked lower than me, and if he was higher, he would have that same condescending smirk. I didn't really know the reason he viewed me as an enemy, but I didn't like this guy.
While you've been scrapping by, I graduated from college and became a department head. What about you?
I don't have a title like that. At my words, Mike laughed scornfully.
Man, not having any title at your age is pretty bad.
No, it's not like that. As I started to speak, Christine and Susan, who had finished their receptionist duties, entered the venue. Seeing the situation between Mike and me, Christine spoke up.
Mike, didn't you know?
What are you talking about?
Mike responded grumpily, and then Susan spoke.
Kevin has been working overseas. That's why he couldn't attend the reunions.
Overseas?
I continued the conversation. At first, I went overseas as a nanny. Oh, a nanny is like a dedicated babysitter. But the kid grew up, and now I'm doing management for her. It all started one day just after I turned 20. I noticed a foreign family visiting the apparel store where I worked. A couple and a little girl who seemed to be in kindergarten. All 3 were strikingly good-looking. It was mesmerizing. But the little girl was fussy and in a bad mood. I couldn't understand everything because they were speaking French, but the girl seemed to be telling her parents she was hungry. The parents seemed to want to shop, but were troubled by their daughter's fussiness. I approached the girl and offered her a candy with the store's logo that was by the cash register. I asked the girl in imperfect French, "Do you like strawberry flavor?" Then, the little girl's eyes lit up, and she nodded. In fact, there are many embassies in this area, and it is frequented by many foreign tourists. So, inevitably, I had to be able to speak French. I was good at French, but I felt it was still insufficient. So to facilitate my work, I was attending French conversation classes twice a week. The little girl perked up when she put the candy in her mouth and gave me a hug, saying, "Thank you." The girl's parents also expressed their joy to me.
Thank you. It seems you can speak French. Could you please keep my daughter company for a while and help her choose a dress? We want her to wear it for the dinner party at the embassy tonight.
I was surprised at the mention of the embassy, but agreed. Holding the girl's hand, I headed to the kids' section. While choosing clothes, the girl told me various things about herself. Her name is Chloe, 5 years old. Apparently, her parents are models. No wonder they are such a good-looking couple. The Chloe's family had sushi for lunch, but Chloe wasn't used to the taste of raw fish and apparently didn't eat much, so she got hungry quickly. I suggested to Chloe, this is a department store, so there are delicious cafes and burger joints. How about we try one later? Chloe's eyes lit up, and she was excitedly adamant about consulting her mom and dad. I chose for her a light blue dress with frills, matching Chloe's eyes. Chloe's family was very pleased and left the store. But the next day, Chloe's family visited the store again. I wonder if they forgot to buy something. I greeted them with a smile. Welcome. Then, Chloe hugged me with tears in her eyes. Chloe's mother apologized to the surprised me.
I'm sorry. Chloe insisted on seeing you again.
Crying, Chloe said,
I don't want to be away from Kevin.
Seeing this, her father made a proposal to me.
Chloe seems to have taken a real liking to you. How about it? If you're up for it, would you become her dedicated nanny?
A nanny. I tilted my head at the word I heard for the first time. Then the mother explained,
A nanny is a profession where you take care of children full-time. Babysitting is more casual and is often done by students for a short time.
The father continued,
If you're willing, we'd like you to live with us. We might ask you to do some chores and hopefully teach her some Japanese. We'll pay you well.
Me. I was surprised, and the father continued,
We often travel to different countries for work, and we have been making Mary feel lonely. We were thinking of hiring a dedicated nanny. However, if you become a nanny, you might not be able to return to the States easily.
I was confused, but seeing Chloe cleaning and crying reminded me of my younger siblings when they were little, and I couldn't refuse. I understand. I'm at your service. After that, the days were tumultuous. I had the Murray family extend their 2-week stay in the States for work a little longer, quit my job, and hastily prepared for the long journey ahead. I reported to my family and quickly packed my bags since I was living at my parents' house. Then, a month later, I left the U.S. While studying for my child care certification online, I traveled the world as Chloe's nanny. And a year later, I obtained my child care certification. I can proudly call myself a nanny. As Chloe grew up, she became a model, influenced by her parents. When I told her I was leaving my job as a nanny, she pleaded, I don't want anyone but Kevin. Be my manager. And so, I became Chloe's exclusive manager. Now, I'm still traveling the world with Chloe, who has become a model. Susan said with sparkling eyes,
I bet nannies earn a whopping salary, especially if the employing family is wealthy. I've seen it on international TV shows.
Christine also continued,
So you became her manager and must have made quite a fortune. Well done, Kevin.
Mike said with a disgruntled face.
A model's manager abroad. Can such things even be?
At that moment, there was a commotion at the entrance of the venue. Looking, a beautiful foreigner was anxiously searching for someone. Then, our eyes met sharply, and she quickly approached and hugged me.
Kevin, I really don't want to be alone. I'm joining the party.
I wanted you to wait in the hotel room because it will cause a huge uproar if Chloe comes. I said embarrassingly, then someone shouted,
Hey, look, that's Chloe Monet who also appeared in the Paris collection.
Yes, Chloe had become a world-famous model. However, just like a pet waiting for its owner, Chloe wouldn't leave my side. The sight caused a stir around. Mike said while trembling,
Could it be the one you're managing, eyes?
Yes, it's Chloe. Mike was astounded, his mouth agape. Then, seemingly dissatisfied, Chloe complained to me loudly as if to make sure everyone there could hear.
You're not just my manager. Tell everyone properly that I'm your girlfriend.
Those words resonated in astonishment throughout the venue. You didn't have to say it out loud. I became even more embarrassed, and Chloe puffed her cheeks and said,
Because, with so many beautiful and mature people around, I got worried.
It seems I have a weakness for Chloe. Sorry, everyone, for the disturbance. We will leave in a bit, so I hope it's okay if Chloe accompanies me. Everyone was excited by those words. After that, it seemed more like Chloe's debut party rather than a reunion. Next thing I knew, Mike was in the corner of the venue, discontentedly gulping down wine. As I approached Mike, he turned away and blurted out words in annoyance.
What's this? Pleased that you can show off your beautiful and famous girlfriend. You're always like this. You get what I want with these.
What you want? According to Mike, back in high school, he confessed his feelings to a girl who was considered the prettiest girl of his grade. However, it seems she turned him down, saying she couldn't date him because she liked him. He seems to have taken it to heart since then, competing in this weird rivalry. It's quite an inconvenient story, but when I explained that I had never actually been confessed to or dated that girl, Mike heavily hung his head in dismay.
What was that all about?
You know what they often say, a woman's heart and the autumn sky, right? When I said that, Mike, for the first time, genuinely laughed in front of me and agreed with a bright face.
That's true.
A few days later, while I was staying at my family's home, Mike invited me to dinner. When I got to the meeting place, Mike grinned.
Looks like she's not coming today.
She's spending time with my mom and siblings today. Plus, this seems to be all right. Pointing to the ring shining on my left ring finger, Mike, surprised, asked me,
What's going on with that?
Well, let's talk about it once we get inside the restaurant. Once we entered the diner, I explained the whole situation. Actually, after the reunion ended, she said, If I don't hurry, someone will snatch you up. Kevin, marry me. Hearing this, Mike nearly spit out his beer.
She proposed to you.
Yeah, it's not cool. I was planning to propose. Plus, I was dragged to buy an engagement ring the next day, labeled as a woman repeller. While I was scratching my head saying this, Mike burst into laughter.
Despite the age difference, you're completely under her thumb.
Mike, with his misunderstanding resolved, was unusually amicable. It felt good talking leisurely with a classmate after such a long time. I promised Mike to gather everyone for a drink the next time I come back to the States. And a year later,
Kevin, look, beautiful, isn't it?
Chloe, twirling around in her wedding dress, showed it to me, and I smiled gently. Yeah, it's beautiful. Satisfied with my reply, Chloe entwined her arm with mine.
I decided to be your wife since the first time we met.
What, since then? Indeed, I was occasionally told by her that she would become my wife when she grew up, but I thought it was just what a young girl often says to her father and didn't take it seriously. Seeing my dumbfounded face, Chloe, with a burst of laughter, pulled my arm.
Come on, Kevin. The ceremony is starting.
Today is the wedding day. We had the ceremony in Hawaii. Mike was also there. Since then, Mike and I have been in frequent contact and became close friends. Back in high school, I never thought the day would come when I would invite Mike to my wedding. Surrounded by my lovely wife, friends, and dear ones, I'm happy. I'll probably be flying around the world again, but I feel I can make even more progress.
I have a meeting tomorrow with a high-ranking executive from a major enterprise company. Coming from a background of just a high school graduate, you live in a completely different world.
Harris, a classmate I hadn't seen in over a decade, said with a condescending smile on his face. Harris looked down on me and boasted about how superior he was, even now. He had been that way since high school. He ridiculed me and believed he was in a superior position. But nice to meet you. I'm the person in charge of this meeting. The next day, as the person introduced themselves during the meeting, Harris's eyes widened in surprise and his face turned pale. My name is Kevin. When I was a freshman in high school, my father's company went bankrupt. My family suddenly became poor. My father managed to find another job. My mother, who had been a homemaker, started working part-time, and I quit the club activities and spent my afternoons working part-time. The fact that my father's company went bankrupt quickly became a school-wide rumor. Harris, the central figure in our class at the time, had been teasing me about it. Others followed Harris's lead and mocked me. They called me a poor guy. While there may have been kind-hearted people who secretly worried about me, no one dared to openly approach me because of Harris's intimidating demeanor. Except for one person.
Kevin, are you okay? Aren't you working too many part-time jobs?
Mary, thanks, I'm okay. The only person who genuinely cared about me was Mary, our class representative. Mary was the only one who treated me without worrying about Harris's eyes. She was the only friend I had during high school. Without Mary, I might have given up on going to high school due to Harris's relentless teasing. However, one day, as high school graduation approached, when Harris found out that I would work without going to college and just having a high school diploma.
Seriously, are you gonna plan to work as a high school graduate? Being a high school graduate is at the bottom of society. You're a confirmed loser in life.
With raucous laughter, my classmates began to insult me right before their eyes. Someone who had been observing Harris's and my interaction chuckled. Their laughter was in agreement with Harris. I would be the only high school graduate in this class. The high school I attended was a preparatory school, so it's quite rare for a high school graduate to graduate from high school. Considering the circumstances, Harris would often ridicule me by calling me a high school graduate at the bottom of society. However, I couldn't say anything in response. All I could do was endure in silence. Damn it, why our family is so poor. With a bitter feeling, I entered society and worked desperately. I couldn't bring myself to say I want to go to college to my parents, no matter how much it pained me. My parents are working ourselves to the brink of physical exhaustion just to repay our debts. I can't let them suffer any further. I really want to go to college, but I don't have the money or the time to save up and study. What's the meaning of my life? Every single day, I work tirelessly to repay the debt. Without realizing it, I'm wearing down my spirit. Then, one day, by chance, I finished work early and decided to pass the time at a bookstore. I was idly flipping through books, not intending to buy anything. Suddenly, my eyes fell on a stack of red books. Come to think of it, it's already the season for entrance exams. I picked one up and started flipping through it. Against all odds, the dream of going to college, which I had given up on, began to resurface. I hurriedly tried to put the red book back in its place.
Are you Kevin? Long time no see.
Mr. Smith. I turned around when I was suddenly addressed, and there stood my high school mentor, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith had helped me countless times with my studies, and I would often seek his advice on personal matters as well.
What's wrong? You seem quite worn out.
Mr. Smith asked with his gentle voice, and I felt everything I had been holding in begin to overflow. After we moved to a nearby cafe and finished our conversation, Smith made a proposal.
I can't help you with financial matters, but I can assist you with your studies.
What?
It's easier when you have someone to teach you rather than studying alone. If you want to go to college, look into scholarships and various programs available. Don't forget there's also the option of bachelor's degree certification. Don't struggle on your own. Rely on me.
His words were so reassuring that I found myself shedding tears without realizing it. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Afterward, I visited Mr. Smith's house during breaks from work and received lessons. I researched and concluded that obtaining a bachelor's degree certification was more realistic for my situation than going to college. Getting the bachelor's degree certification would broaden my job opportunities. With that, my salary would increase, and I could save money as well. It's never too late to go to college if I want to. Thanks to Mr. Smith's guidance, I successfully obtained the bachelor's degree certification.
Hey, Kevin, there's a job opening at a company my acquaintance works for. They require a bachelor's degree, but since you've obtained the certification, why don't you give it a shot?
Yes, absolutely. Right after getting the certification, I was fortunate enough to receive a job referral from Mr. Smith, and I was able to switch to a much better job than my current one. It seems like I can finally see some light in my life. After the job change, I worked tirelessly. To repay Mr. Smith, you introduced me to this company, and to save money for future college expenses. One day, while working hard as usual, a school reunion brings back memories. I received a letter about a high school reunion invitation. Although I didn't have the lively high school experience with everyone, maybe Mary will attend. I want to update her on my current situation and express my gratitude for being my supporter. With that in mind, I replied the invitation to join the reunion. I looked forward to seeing her and eagerly waited for the reunion day. And then, on the day of the reunion, I arrived at the venue and immediately started looking for Mary.
Hey, are you Kevin? Long time no see you.
It was Harris who approached me in an over-friendly. It had been over a decade since we graduated from high school, and I hadn't seen him once. However, his face remained unchanged from those days, and he wore a sly and vulgar grin. Long time no see you. Are you doing well? I replied with non-committal words.
Yo, you seem to be doing well too. What have you been up to since high school? Oh, I see. You're working with just a high school diploma, right? Your life must be tough, isn't it?
While pretending to sympathize with words, he kept that unpleasant smile on his face.
I enrolled in the Harvard University and got a job at a major company. You know about it, right? It's called More Enterprises. You must have heard the name, right?
More Enterprises. Well, I've heard of it. Harris chuckled proudly.
I have a meeting tomorrow with a high-ranking executive from a major enterprise company. Coming from a background of just a high school graduate, you live in a completely different world.
Then, in a familiar manner, He put his arm around my shoulder.
You know, how did you even manage to come to this reunion? Everyone else here has a college degree. You're the only bottom-tier high school grad. The social underclass doesn't belong in this gathering. Just go home.
I did get a bachelor's degree certification, but I hesitated to reply him. However, before I could speak, Harris's arm around my shoulder was forcibly removed by a third party.
Harris, could you please not bother Kevin?
Damn. The class rep is as uptight as ever.
Let's go, Kevin.
Saying that, the one who took my arm was the grown-up Mary. She separated me from Harris and turned to face me.
Long time no see you, Kevin. Are you doing well?
Mary, yay, I've been doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. Hey, what have you been up to since graduating from high school? Tell me all about it.
Afterward, the two of us exchanged updates on our lives and got animated in our conversation. In the midst of our chat, we discovered that we both enjoyed camping, and we made plans to go camping together in the near future.
Well then, let's exchange contact information and also our social media accounts. This way, we can stay in touch anytime.
Yay, that sounds good. I'll think about some camping locations for us.
Great. I'm looking forward to it.
Although the reunion had been slightly interrupted, I had successfully reconnected with Mary as originally intended. Furthermore, we had made plans to go camping together. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be a rewarding experience, and I returned home in high spirits. I was feeling a bit down when thinking about work tomorrow, but looking forward to the plan with Mary makes me feel like I can do my best. Tomorrow was a work day, and there were important negotiations scheduled. So, I tried to suppress my excitement and went to bed early to prepare for the next day. And then, the next day, for this negotiation, the representative from the other company had come to our office to give a presentation. I entered the prepared meeting room and greeted the representative for the first time. Nice to meet you. I'm Kevin, the one in charge of this project. Thank you for being here. I extended my business card as I greeted, but there was no response from the other side.
Done. Is something wrong?
My boss, who was present, asked the other person with a puzzled expression. That other person was.
Why?
In a small voice that only I could hear, he muttered. It was understandable that the other person was surprised. After all, today's negotiation partner was none other than me, the person Harris had ridiculed so much during our high school days. Yes, the person I was negotiating with today was Harris. The super high-profile executive that Harris was boasting about yesterday was actually me. I had suspected it when I heard his story yesterday, and it turned out that he was indeed my negotiating partner today. Afterward, with a pale face, Harris stumbled over his words, and his co-worker Johnson, who had accompanied him, provided support. Ultimately, Johnson took the lead in the presentation, and after the negotiation,
Hey, come over here for a moment.
Harris secretly called me over and led me to a secluded corner of the hallway.
Why are you here?
While Harris still didn't quite grasp the situation, I let out a big sigh and patiently explained everything from scratch. I explained how I had obtained the bachelor's degree certification under Mr. Smith's guidance while working, how I got a job at a super high-profile company through Mr. Smith's referral, and how I had worked diligently to repay Smith and eventually even got promoted to department head. After I finished explaining everything, Harris let out a deflated voice and said, "I can't believe it." I could see the shock on Harris's face as he realized that he was actually in a position lower than mine, despite looking down on me all this time. And once more, I let out a sigh and said, "You remember bragging about your affairs at the reunion yesterday, right?"
What? Well, you see.
At our company, we have a strict policy against infidelity. We can't trust someone who engages in affairs as a business partner. I'll request that your company reassign your responsibilities.
Wait a minute. We're friends, aren't we?
Harris clung to me and said that, so I couldn't help but laugh. Friends, have you forgotten what you did back in high school? It's convenient how you conveniently forget your past actions. My only friend is Mary. You're just a classmate, not a friend. I said this and shrugged off his arm. Harris could only watch me leave with a look of despair. Afterward, I requested that Harris be removed from his responsibilities along with his infidelity. However, this situation escalated into something unexpected. Turns out, Harris's affair partner was the receptionist at one of our business partners, and Harris's wife happened to be his superior. Harris's wife was furious when she found out about the affair. She contacted the HR department, and it seems Harris received both a transfer and a demotion as a result. Getting involved with a colleague's wife and angering his own boss, Harris found himself with no place left within the company.
Perhaps retirement is just a matter of time for him. I heard his wife is in the process of divorce and seeking alimony.
The person who told me this was Harris's coworker, Johnson, who was newly in charge. It seems that Johnson's performance in the presentation that day had been highly praised. Harris had been using him as a pawn, and Johnson was relieved when Harris was no longer around. Thanks to the talented Johnson, the negotiation was successfully concluded. I look forward to future dealings. Even though work keeps me busy and can be challenging every day, I find it very rewarding and enjoyable. Next week, I'll be going camping with Mary, and despite the hectic schedule, there's a sense of fulfillment. I owe this kind of life to Mr. Smith. I'll continue to do my best to live a life I can be proud of, just as my teacher would expect.